Rico Rockstars 1 here. I'm making another comparison video. Today I want to talk about two different third-party generic Super Nintendo controllers that you can get out on the market these days. Let's say you have a Super Nintendo, but it only came with one controller, or your main controller broke, or something like that. It gets stolen, etc. You get the idea? Well, you got two alternatives. You got many alternatives. I have two shown here. But the fact that your first party one breaks, well, that's very unlikely because Super Nintendo controllers last for a pretty long time. I've had a few for quite some time, and they still work. All they need is some cleaning on the contacts, and then you should be good to go. For today, I have these two. One's made by TTX Tech, the other is made by Cirka. Now, before I get into that, there are also different variations. There's the Retrobit one that's shaped like a Sega Saturn controller, which I also have, and let me just say, that one is actually pretty good if you love the Saturn controller. But that's going to get a different comparison. I want to talk about the ones that actually look like a real Super Nintendo controller. There's also one made by Yobo Gameware. Now that version I don't have, but I will tell you, it looks a lot like a real Model 102 Super Nintendo controller. I have the real deal, so if you want photos of the fake or video on a fake Super Nintendo controller, the bootleg ones made by Yobo, I will put a link in the description, and you can see a video on that. Funny enough, it has the same Nintendo logo on the front, but the label around here is a yellowish color, and the label and the letters were black. And the E's would be plastic, the D-pad would have a different feeling, and the shoulder buttons would feel different. But the back part is hilarious. Instead of saying 102, it basically takes one off of a real one that says Super Nintendo, the SNES 005, which is complete bull, but it's hysterically funny. Anyway, let's get on to the comparison between the two I do have. If you guys want me to pick up a Yobo Gameware variation of the fake Super Nintendo controller, if I find one for a good deal, I'll feature it in this video. But since I haven't seen one for quite some time, well, this is all you get for the video. I mean, there's other variations. I did have that Tummy one. That one was pretty good, but that one, the wire broke. That was kind of my fault. It was a good controller. It's just I swapped out the D-pad because I didn't like the one stock with the system. But you can use an official Nintendo one in that one. But for now, I'm going to compare these two. We got the TTX Tech one. There are basically two versions of the TTX Tech one, I should mention. Well, let me go ahead and unravel the TTX Tech one first. And then you have the Cirka one. The Cirka one only has one model, and trying to unravel this with one hand is not as easy. But here are the two compared side by side. There we are. So, comparison between the two, as you can tell, the TTX Tech does not have any label on this one. The earlier variations, the very early ones, had a little oval on there which looks similar to the 102 controller I just showed you. It didn't have a logo on it because obviously Nintendo would sue them for that if it did. So they just left it a blank oval logo. But this one they took that off for that specific reason. Another thing I need to mention, the D-pad on the earlier models for these, they look a bit bulky like the Retro Duo's controller. I don't have a Retro Duo anymore. I actually sold that to a friend. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't think he wants to be mentioned. But at least this one, it actually looks and feels a lot more like an actual Super Nintendo controller. Another thing I need to mention, there are two variations of the TTX Tech Super Nintendo controller. This is the one that has the color scheme of the European, Australian, and Japanese controllers. The Cirka one has the lavender and purple, just like an actual North American Super Nintendo. However, you can get this controller with the Super Nintendo colors. But this one I found at a pawn shop for $5. And this one I bought in the box from another pawn shop, which unfortunately closed down. But this one that I got from is still open. So, other than that, yeah. So, when it comes to comparing these two, here's where things get very interesting. In the hands, texture-wise, this one feels decent, like for good. This one feels a lot more like an actual Super Nintendo controller, so I'm going to give points to both of them. Now, when you're gripping it around, the Cirka one feels more durable, plastic-wise. This one feels like it could snap, so that's another point for Cirka. Now, the buttons quality. Let's get into that. We'll start with the TTX Tech one. The shoulder buttons feel very nice. I like how the buttons feel. Sure, they make a loud click noise, but that's not a big deal to me. It may be to you, but it isn't to me. Select and start are flat instead of rounded on the top. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And the D-pad, let me just say, this D-pad feels a lot like a Nintendo D-pad. Compared to the Cirka, the shoulder buttons are also nice. The face buttons feel not too bad. They click as well. Now, the select and start are rubber, just like the real controller. The D-pad is the one thing I don't like. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just like the Retro Duo, where it presses all four. I mean, it feels like it's rocking all... It may look like it's rocking all around, but to me it feels like it's pressing all four directions, just like the Retro Duo. I may have this bundled with the D-pad from a real Super Nintendo controller. So, if anything, point for TTX Tech. Now, cord thickness. I gotta give it to the Cirka because it's thick and it doesn't feel like it could snap at any point. This one feels a little cheap. I mean, if I do this, it could snap. Worries me. So, that's a point for Cirka. Now, cord length. Let's take a look at the cord length. So, line these up. I'm gonna pull these out. The cord will actually now the thinner cord is obviously the TTX Tech one, and the longer one is the Cirka one. So that's another point for Cirka. If you have a long way from your TV, then get the Cirka one. But the TTX Tech one is still pretty good. It's not too far from where I'm sitting. And if it is, I use an extension cable. Now, when it comes to fighting games, I don't have Street Fighter on hand, unfortunately. The only games that I can really test these controllers with is Panel de Pon and Sailor Moon Kurukurin and a few other games that I do have in my collection. So, other than that, let me show you the backside for both controllers. This one has the TTX Tech labeling. Earlier ones didn't. And this one has a Cirka labeling on it. Now, both of them had a sticker. This one was right here in the middle, and this one had it right on the side, right, if I could find, right over here. And I wanted to move the sticker or two right here so I could show you when it was manufactured and stuff, but it just sunk right in, unfortunately. So, other than that, yeah, on the back side, this one says Cirka SNES controller model number M07888/3240POB. This one says TTX Tech 11301505292220, made in China. And this one was made on the November of 2015. That's what you get with those controllers. So if you want, in part 2, I will show these controllers in action with both games, or the games that I'll be testing it with, And in part 3, I'll basically show the innards of what the controller looks like. So stay tuned for that. This is RikaRock2001 saying thanks for watching my comparison video. And in conclusion, well, there will be a part 2. I will demonstrate both controllers. Tell me, which controller looks more like the one you would want to grab? The Cirka or the TTX Tech? I need to mention with some flaws with both of these. The Cirka one, I should mention, one guy demonstrated it with Street Fighter. He had to go through 2 of these, and it didn't work with button combinations for that. For the TTX Tech, some other YouTuber mentioned he had 2 of them, the older and newer versions, and they both died on him. I don't know the person who had the Cirka one, but I do know the one who had the TTX Tech variation was Smerals, who also did a review on the NES variation of the TTX Tech controller, which died on him. Now, this isn't the only TTX Tech related controller I have. I have a PlayStation 2 TTX Tech controller I've done in the past, and that still works perfectly. Now, the only controller I wasn't satisfied by TTX Tech was the GameCube one. But that was because I, unfortunately, tried fixing it wrong, so that was partially my fault. TTX Tech really needs to fix up, revision their controllers for the GameCube. The thumbsticks wear out quickly. They need to use more durable thumbsticks, so... Other than that, the Super Nintendo controllers, these old gamepads, they work very well. But when you get to the more modern stuff, well, PS2 works just fine. I will mention that. So, sorry I went off topic, but I just want to share with you, this isn't the only TTX Tech related controller I have. So, thanks for watching. I'm signing off. Have a good one.